Things are going to change in Kansas City. They're going to get even better in a number of ways. Yes, it's going to be a long offseason, but where does it start and how does it finish today on Locked On Chiefs?
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the mock draft from yesterday. We're going to talk about today two things that really hit me, and that is this offense is going to get even better now as they change a couple of things, some experiments that did and didn't work out, and how they build upon them today. We're brought to you by FanDuel. This episode and all of them, official sportsbook of the NFL and the NBA. Make every moment count and make it more with FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can get started today. We are going to cover those bases. And really what the next step is just the first in what many is going to be an evolution for this team that I think is going to leave them in a better offensive position than what we just witnessed in a Super Bowl year. We'll get to that today. Thanks for making us your first listen as part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're free on every platform, everywhere, all the time. So thanks for doing that. Check out another Locked On show because it's now officially draft season. You know you can check out the draft show. I'm guesting on there this week, and you'll see something new from me in the coming months. It's going to be a little bit of a unique twist. And then you can check out all the rest of the teams as they all start their rebuild process today. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, where the Athletic Matrix lives, as well as NFL 33 and RGR.
And I'm Chris Clark. Thank you all for listening. We do appreciate it. And there is going to be a lot to talk about. The offense is going to change. Eric Bieniemy is officially the offensive coordinator in Washington. And right now, as of right now, we think we know who the offensive coordinator will be in Kansas City, but they still have to do interviews.
They do. The new rule is involved here. There is going to have to be a couple of outside interviews before they can promote anyone from within, which is the expectation is that Andy's always going to promote from within to one of the coordinator spots. I don't know who those interviews are going to be. Do you have an idea?
I don't. But the interesting thing to me is, and quite frankly, I wonder if the running backs coach this year, and I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, is going to be one of those guys that – there you go. Yeah, if he's going to be one of those guys that they interview for offensive coordinator, I don't think that he's ready for it, but maybe they have a different opinion. So we'll see if that happens. We kind of talked about him as being a potential QB coach in the wings if Nagy is the one that comes up. But I also think it's really interesting that not only are we talking about a change at coordinator, but it sounds like a lot of people, I don't know if this is insider information that they're getting or they're just putting pieces together, but they think Nagy is the eventual replacement for Reid in the next 3 to 5 years.
I mean, let's be real. This whole Andy Reid might retire after winning 2 Super Bowls, that's all bull. Like, Andy never thought that. Everyone that I've spoken to that has any inclination of anyone close to him says, no, it's just questions the media asked and he had to answer them. It was never anything that he brought up, but it gets the wheels turning, right? And Andy's like, okay, so I got this bum knee. I'm already having surgeries and stuff. Couple more rings and I could call it a career, right? So like it does start the process of like, okay, what would you do if something happens, if something, just clicks and Andy's like, you know what? It's been great NFL. I'll see you in the Hall of Fame. I wonder if that starts and maybe shortens his clock a little bit, in which case, do you think Matt Nagy could hang out as the OC for more than 2 or 3 years and not get another head coaching job?
Well, I think it's going to depend on what he's been told from Kansas City. If he eventually becomes the hire, which we are kind of expecting is going to be the case, then I'm sure that they already have started having conversations with him about a potential head coaching gig in the near future if he wants to stay in Kansas City. And, the big question I'm going to have, and this was something that kind of got talked about a little bit by different people in the media, was all the offensive coordinators that have gone to the Super Bowl have been basically hired out other than Eric Bieniemy and the coordinator from the Tampa Bay, Byron Leftwich, have been hired out during that next year. So is Nagy going to get an offer if they go back to the Super Bowl this year? Is he going to get an offer? The next time they go back to the Super Bowl, I would imagine he's going to get an offer. But here's the other side of that. Do you really want to move on to another team and try to rebuild everything if you know you have a structure in place and you know you have a QB and QB1? Do you really want to go elsewhere?
There's two sides to that coin, and I like where you're going because that is a significant question. First, to get to that point, I agree with you. That is going to be an issue because Andy's not going anywhere. Matt Nagy brings some new creative juice to this offense. I think we've already seen a bit of it. We're going to talk in the next segment, folks, about what we're going to see on the field that's going to differ. Matt Nagy's going to be a big part of that. And you have QB1. So you're right. Like a return to the Super Bowl is not only possible, it's likely at this point. I know we just came off of a championship, but nobody's changed. Free agency hasn't started. Nobody's lost a deal or a trade yet. So you have to say they're still the number one team as we project to next season.
But people are already picking the Chargers to win next year. So there you go.
People are dumb. What are you going to do?
Exactly. It happens every single year. So there you go.
It really does. But that said, if that kind of success comes, whether it's another AFC championship game, whether it's another title, either way, the offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs that coaches Patrick Mahomes and the way that he plays will get offers. I think the key is going to be for Matt Nagy is as he discusses with Andy, like, how you feeling, coach? You know, how long you think you got left in you, buddy? There could be an opportunity to go take a job as a head coach at another organization and only sign like a 2 or 3 year contract. Right now, coaches are striving to get 4, 5, maybe 6 years because of the turnover, and they want a little bit of longevity, right? Well, Matt might be in the position to say, listen, I'm going to max out at 3 because, you know, I might have another opportunity come up and I don't want to be under contract.
I don't think that he would do that. I think that if you want to be in Kansas City, maybe Kansas City just says, okay, look, you're the head coach in waiting. But there's another problem with that. You can't really do that with the Rooney rule. Yeah, so it's going to be hard. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, there was talk that Jonathan Gannon, the Eagles defensive coordinator, got offered more money from the Eagles than he got offered to be the head coach of the Cardinals.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So there's a question there. I mean, can Kansas City come back and do that and say, okay, you know, we'll beat whatever they're going to pay you as a head coach?
There's no salary cap on coaches.
Yep.
That's all I'm going to say.
And you have to say, you would have to think that Clark Hunt is going to want, and Brett Veacher is going to want continuity. And Nagy gives them that ability to have continuity.
Yep. He certainly does. I mean, sit down, have an appetizer because you're going to be able to eat at some point when Andy Reid has said, you know, I've done enough for this sport.
And speaking of eating, I want to tell you about our friends over at Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all of the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're 100% real chocolate. That's real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And now you don't have to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about going to Built.com and getting Built Bars. But now you can actually go to Sam's Club or Walmart and get a box of Built Bars. If you go to Walmart, you can get a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Or if you go to Sam's Club, they have the 13-bar box in the pharmacy section of brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. And you really will, because these are delicious protein bars.
Got to dig them. Okay. So clearly coaching is going to change, but as we said, in all likelihood, we have an idea of what's going to happen. That said, no matter who the OC is, Andy Reid's going to be here, so you know that's going to be a large string of continuity. What might change, though? I think there was a great piece that Albert Breer did for SI this week that really caught my eye as really maybe the shift, the systemic shift that I've been crying for 5 years now. In that, the O-line interviewed with Breer and kind of laid out the way that they went about preparing for this Super Bowl. And it was a mock game prep the first week and then went to the site and went through all their install. But from day one, it was get physical, let them know you're here, run the ball down the Eagles' throats. And we saw they achieved balance, nearly perfect balance in that Super Bowl. And I think in making that the way that you had to attack the Eagles, I think that sets up for seasons to come that you are going to see more pulling guards. You are going to see more dedicated concepts to jazzing up the run game like we've seen in the past game for so long. This is an admiration, I think, of what's coming down the line.
I know you've been wanting it for years. I don't think you're going to get it.
Come on.
I really don't. I think if you look at, even if you start getting into advanced statistics, you cannot look at advanced statistics that show how offenses play and think that running the ball is going to be better than giving Patrick Mahomes the ball. So that's going to be problem number one. I'm not going to say that they're not going to get more exotic and try to do things to be more physical. Maybe that's the way that they want to build their offensive line, and they're going to run the ball about the same that they have, maybe a little bit more, but I don't think it's going to be anywhere near balance.
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, okay. But the other side of it, and this is something that I find really interesting, is who are you going to have? Because there's a lot of questions when you start looking at some of the free agents that you have right now. And as of today, I was just looking, or as of last night, I was just looking when we recorded this on Monday night, the Chiefs have negative salary cap space for 2023.
Shut up.
And that is because they had incentives, and a lot of players had either incentives for the Super Bowl or they had incentives like Patrick had an MVP incentive. He also had an AFC Championship incentive. So the question is, did that hit before or after? I would guess it probably hit after. They were at about $7 million. Now they're negative $3.5 million. They're going to have to make up some room, and that's before you even decide on Orlando Brown, who you expect that they're going to franchise tag.
Yeah, I checked the wild card week, and I think it was at 13 million. And so you can see all those incentives hit. That's what happens in the championship year. There's no way around it. You know, there are very specific Super Bowl specific consequences in a lot of big star athlete contracts. So, hey, what
Juju had a bunch of incentives that he made a lot. He probably made $4 or $5 million more, maybe even more than that in incentives because of getting to the Super Bowl, because of what he was able to do during the season. And none of those hit the 2022 cap because they were not likely to be earned. So that changes what you are going to do for 2023. It is what it is. And one of the other things I thought was really interesting that came out that I saw, that Andy Reid said they're going to make a big push to try to retain their bookend tackles. I found that interesting.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I'm not shocked on Brown, but I'm a little surprised on Wiley.
I will put it this way. Trust is earned. And especially the way that Andrew got beat up against the Bucs in 55, was it? Yeah. And had his revenge game, basically, against a smaller, lighter, faster, more bendy edge than he faced in Shaq Barrett in that game against the Eagles. That redemption story, I think, is really coming through. And let's be honest. Somebody will give or offer Andrew Wiley a contract. It's not going to be at the level of Orlando Brown, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly why I think they're going to lose Andrew Wiley, is because he came back on a special deal because he had been with the team for 5 years. They were able to get him on a cheap deal where I think they paid him $4 million and it only counted 2 against the cap because of some exception, because he had been here so long. They're not going to be able to do that again this year. He's looking for a long-term deal. This is going to be his last chance. I believe he's 29. It's nothing against Andrew Wiley. It's just I don't think that they're going to have the ability to pay him if they want to bring in some other pieces.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. There's just no way around it. But it's not the only thing they have to do. They're going to be an overhaul on the passing game as well. It's not as much, I think, in general, but it's going to be critical. And I think Patrick's going to have an opportunity to really, I think, expand what he does. Matt Nagy's going to help with that. We're going to talk about that. But if I was going to bet it, I might have a way to do that might make a lot of sense, You can do that as well. And all you got to do is go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can see it there below. Chris, it's midway through the NBA season. Even though the NBA is going and the NFL's over, you can still get in on the action. It's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because they'll give you a no-sweat first bet, and that's $1,000 free if your first bet fails. So you just have to bet $5, and if it doesn't win, you get $1,000 in free bets. Just download the sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use, and everywhere that you want to go, whether it's on Apple or on Android, whatever you need. Plus, you can even put all of your action, whether it's props, top scorers, like threes, the tournaments coming in NCAA, like you can put it all together in same game parlays. It's all there for you. Don't miss your chance for a no sweat first bet. That's $1,000 bonus in bets on top of if you miss your first bet. You just got to go to that address below, Chris, at FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon, all one word, and learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL and the NBA. Now, if I'm betting a prop bet, it's going to be that there are at least two. I'll put it at 2.5. is the line of guys that catch 30 passes from Patrick Mahomes next year that aren't on the roster right now. What say you?
Oh man, I think that could be. We start getting into draft season. We start getting into free agency, which is coming up, and I think the new league year is 3/15 is when that starts. Legal tampering period is going to be different. I don't think Kansas City is going to be going in the free agent market when it comes to wide receivers, other than maybe re-signing one of their own. But I do think that Kansas City is probably going to be looking at a tight end or a wide receiver in somebody and maybe. And I'll throw this out there as well. Maybe even another running back that can come in and be that guy that's going to catch passes out of the backfield, because it doesn't have to be just a tight end or wide receiver. It could be a running back as well. I do think that Kansas City, and Brett Veach has even said he wants to draft a pass catcher every year when Mahomes is quarterback higher. This might be the year they do it, considering all the picks they have.
Yeah, and it comes down. I expect them to kind of pick and choose. I don't want them to go wide receiver in the first round, because I don't think this class is nearly as good as the last two classes. But if they find somebody that they like that falls to them and they think should have gone much higher, you could see them trade up for that. You could see them trade up for edge. You could see them trade up for offensive tackle. But this offense is going to get, I think, the preferential treatment unless it's just something, really stark on the defensive side. And that's because you have Kadarius Toney under contract. You have Sky Moore under contract. Did I miss anything? Well, I guess technically MVS is technically under contract. I expect that option to be exercised, and I don't think that he is here to start the season on that contract, at least. That's going to be my big caveat, right?
Interesting.
So for me, that's at least a free agent wide receiver. I think they want to pull somebody like Watson back to be low cost, but a guy that you feel knows the system well enough to contribute. They got a couple of question marks in the law firm of Ross and Ross on the practice squad that they got to figure out.
So those don't count in your two that are going to catch 30 passes. That, just to be clear, because you said
Correct.
that aren't even on the roster.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to point that out.
I think it's Sky and Kadarius and X and X. And I think one of them comes from the draft, and I think one of them is likely a free agent. And I think the pursuit is of Juju Smith-Schuster without MVS on the roster. You tell me if I'm wrong.
I could see it. And I think MVS played a role at the very end in the AFC Championship game. He had a great game. I think a lot of people said that he was more of a decoy in the Super Bowl. Maybe that's possible. Maybe they restructure his contract. Maybe he's back on a reduced amount. I don't know. But it was really hard. The bigger thing that is the question with MVS is the chemistry with Patrick there. Mm-hmm. And it never seemed to hit the entire season, even through the Super Bowl. And you can say it hit in the AFC Championship game. I don't really think it hit. I think Mahomes was forced to throw him the ball more than he necessarily would have otherwise, because they had no other options.
Where'd everyone go?
So yeah, that's going to be something to watch. And does Kansas City, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit too. I'm not saying that they need to go out and replace Travis Kelce, obviously. But I'm not going to be shocked if they take a tight end high. They need to have somebody on the roster to be able to compete in that room. I think Noah Gray's done a good job, but I don't think he's shown that he can be a guy that can step in and replace even half of what Travis can do.
Agreed. You need an actual split out like F tight end is what you need. You need a big slot, because that's honestly what Travis is most of the time. It's just that he's developed the ability to go back inside and make passable blocks and line up and give you some dimensionality to the way that you're showing your alignments to the defense. Okay.
Yeah, and the biggest thing that Kelce has done is he has developed a rapport with Mahomes to where he knows what Mahomes is thinking. Mahomes knows what Kelce's thinking. That's not going to come on one off season. So no matter who you bring in, draft or free agency, you're probably looking at somebody that has to be here a couple of years to even get to a point where they can start to replace Travis Kelce eventually when he's going to retire. And I'm not saying he's going to retire soon. I don't know when he's going to retire. I never would have expected him to have the career year he had this year at the age he's at. He's by far exceeding expectations. So I hope that he continues to do that. But you still have to plan for the eventual situation where he's not going to be playing anymore. Yeah. I mean, we talked about Andy Reid. Matt Nagy is probably Andy Reid's successor, or that's a lot of the ways that people look at it right now. I think you need to think about Travis Kelce and trying to figure out a successor there as well.
That's a fair point. And what better class than what has been the best tight end class in 6, 7, 8 years?
And then it goes even further with when you consider how many times Kansas City used 2 tight end personnel and 3 tight end personnel, huge in the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Both of those formations.
Agreed. Now we'll see what happens in free agency. That could throw a wrench in our plans here, but it's going to evolve. No, nothing stays static. Not for Patrick Mahomes, not for Andy Reid, not for the Kansas City Chiefs. So we will see change, and we're going to map it out for you every step of the way. Remember, it's not the offseason. That doesn't exist. We're here 5 days a week for you year round, no matter what. Unless I can't speak, you will hear something. So make sure that you get subbed, whether you're on YouTube or the audio platforms. Leave your comments. What do you want to see happen on YouTube and in the reviews on iTunes and Spotify? We appreciate your time. We're going to start digging in a little bit deeper. Look at the defensive side coming up this week. So don't miss it. We'll be back with you every day this week. And then, we're going to start doing mock drafts on Mondays because you guys seem to dig them. So thanks for your time today, and we'll talk to you next time.